Okay, so this is it. It's time to get started. This is where we start learning HTML. Here are some of the basics. What is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's a text file that contains small markup tags. And last time you saw those, a little clip of the code where you can see the angular brackets. The markup tags tell the web browser how they should display the page. So they are a markup language that describes the content. Now, this is important to differentiate from the appearance, for example. And an HTML file always will end in .htm or, more commonly, .html. So when we're saving our files, we're going to save them as .html files. And an HTML file can be created just using a simple text editor, and we'll have some suggestions for you in a moment. So when we create our HTML files, we'll be creating them in a text editor. We'll be saving them as type plain text. We don't want any formatting at all. And we'll be saving them with the extension .html. The purpose of HTML is for markup. It's not for programming. And the reason for that is that it can structure and describe content really, really well, but it's limited in how interactive it is. It lacks logic, and that's what the programming language brings. Unless you add interactivity, an HTML page is going to look the same every time you view it. So later on when we do JavaScript, you'll be learning a bit more about making those HTML pages more responsive. So here we can see this is an example of the first ever web page that was created 26 years ago by Tim Berners-Lee, who basically invented the World Wide Web. And there's a copy of it online that you can have a look at. It's a very, very simple page, but it was groundbreaking because that has led to the web as we know it today. So you can see it just has a little header at the top and some text and these blue links, and they're the hyperlinks. And that is the default for links when you make a web page. They will always come up as blue. Of course, we're going to change that by using CSS. So there you go, very, very simple, and think of how far we've come in 25 years. Let's talk a little bit about the development environment. For this, you're going to be creating text files, as we said, using some kind of plain text editor. The ones we suggest you use, I'm going to be using Text Wrangler, which is a text editor for the Mac. And the other one, if you're using a Windows machine, we suggest Notepad++, not Notepad. That's not going to be enough. Notepad++ allows you to edit code. There's also Sublime Text, which is becoming increasingly popular. It's a very nice environment to develop in, and it's available for Macs, for Windows, for Linux machines. So take your pick. Marco, I think, is using Sublime Text further on in the course, and I'll stick with Text Wrangler now. So you'll get a bit of a flavour for what each one does. But go and have a look. I have here on the slide the different web addresses for those. So do have a look and see which ones you prefer. Play around with them and see what you think. The really important thing is don't use word processing software. It's a very bad idea. It leads to lots of unnecessary things being put into your code, and it is a pain to get rid of. So please don't do that. Don't try and use Word or anything like that. Make sure it is a text editor that works with plain text files. Now let's talk a little bit about the browser. So the browser is our way of accessing the web, and you need to be able to use the browser for that, but there are so many different ones out there. So how do you decide which browser is best? Well, currently we can look at browser stats from all over the world, and currently Google Chrome is the leading browser by a long way. So I'm going to stick to Google Chrome for this. It's also got some very good development tools as well that we'll be making use of. There's no such thing as uniformity across browsers. Web pages may be developed that you hope will look the same across browsers, but there are so many quirks to each one that it's very hard to tell. So don't think that just because you make your web page work on Google Chrome that it's going to transfer seamlessly to other browsers. You're always going to need to check that because it just will not necessarily be uniform. As well as displaying web pages, browsers often have development tools built in, and I'd like to show you some of these now. Back to our web page, and let's look at the developer. So if we go to View, Developer, Developer Tools, we see a little console at the side with lots of different things going on. So here, for example, we have all of the source code. It goes in and out. You can open and close sections of it. And when we put our cursor over different parts of these, we see different things. So for example, here I have got the cursor over header, and you can see on the left hand side that the header is highlighted in blue. So we're able to tell what we're working with when we put our cursor over that. And down here you see lots of other different bits. This is something we'll look at later, this box, when we come to CSS. It's a really important part of that, but you can ignore it for now. So just so you know, you've got lots of different things that you can look at, lots of sources of links that are in that file, so many things tools that you've got at hand. We're going to keep it really simple for the beginning. So that's it for the background of HTML, and in the next bit we're going to actually build our web page and do the first tags.